Well, hello there, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of our sustainability series, looking at what and how SMEs can map their water, carbon and biodiversity credentials. We're joined by Lauren Branson. She's the CEO of Calyx, the industry leader in data-based sustainability insights for food supply chains, and co-founder and CEO of Kurrajong Kitchen, Karen Lebsat, as they map exactly what I said, the water, carbon and biodiversity of Kurrajong's new cracker, Oaklees. Hello, Lauren. Hello, Karen.
Hey, Kim.
Did I just call them Oaklees instead of Oaklees?
I think you did, actually.
I think I did too. We can leave this in. It's nice and, it just shows that we're normal human beings.
Absolutely.
So today's episode, we're going to hear mostly from Lauren as she walks through the findings that Calyx has reached from the materials and that Karen supplied after last week's episode. Karen has had a little bit of a brief look at them before we've just started. It was more to avoid any form of, sort of medical incident, which was not necessary. So that was great.
Yeah,
but let's go, shall we, Lauren?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that introduction, Kim. And this is always, for me, one of the most exciting parts of taking a company on their sustainability journey is showing them the data. And I think, rightly so, Karen, mostly you do this behind closed doors, the first glimpse at the data and a new way of assessing your products, because sometimes the results aren't as you want them to be. And that's often normal because it's something that you haven't been tracking before. So it's not as if you've known about this, you've seen the data and you haven't done anything. It's completely new. So it can sometimes be confronting that there might be products in your portfolio that you thought should perform really well, but aren't performing really well. So often we would do this behind closed doors, but Karen, the amazing woman that she is with such a beautiful business is going to, go through these results with you. As we said, she's had a quick glance at them to make sure that there's nothing too confronting in there, but we're really excited to share them with you today.
And with that, Lauren, thank you. I'm really excited to receive them. I did have a quick glance at the end result, and I'm really excited to look at the breakdown and how we got there. And then, of course, what do we do with that and what's the future of what we do with that? So I'm going to sit back, relax, and hand over to you so that you can analyze this product. So in layman's terms, I can understand exactly what it means as like any SME. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. So just to recap for everyone, what Karen supplied were the ingredients and the percentage inclusion for this beautiful new range of Oaklees crackers. And so we've turned them into sustainability data. So the first insight that we typically show a customer is overall. So we've looked at 8 core sustainability metrics. So carbon, water, soil health, labour risk, biodiversity and animal welfare, and roll them all up into a score out of 100 so that you can sort of see, okay, am I good or bad and what does that look like? So for Oaklees, congratulations, because you've actually scored 65 out of 100 that you got on the screen that you can see here. And then what we do is we would compare that to a category average, or if you've got a competitor, we might be able to, behind the scenes, compare that to them as well. Or you could compare this to your own portfolio. But what you can see is great here is that Oaklees scores a 65 out of 100. Whereas typically for crackers and crisp breads, they only score 55. So she's already 10 percentage points higher than the category average without really even having done anything, which is a really positive story. And just to help you understand the scale that you're looking at here along the x-axis, as you move towards closer to 100, it's more of a positive impact. And then closer to 0 is a negative impact. So congratulations, Karen. You've done a really good job without even knowing you've been doing it.
That's really exciting. So that's great to see that on the first slide. So I'm going, oh yeah, I feel pretty good about that. So thank you. Let's see where we go.
I was going to say it must be reassuring that like straight off the bat you're already performing better than the average within that category.
I think it's like, phew, we're not below average, right? Okay, and we're actually way above average in terms of that, with the 10 percentage points as you spoke about. So very excited about that. Very excited. I'm already going, wow, what can we do with that? Okay, so
It's awesome.
Let's see.
So then the next metric that we typically do a deep dive into for a customer is carbon, because we spoke a little bit about, carbon being the metric that underpins all sustainability. We think about our major retailers, they've got net zero emissions targets. So that all relates to carbon. So you need to be able to clearly communicate your carbon footprint. So this looks at a cradle to grave carbon footprint for the Oaklees crackers. This isn't relative, it just breaks it down for that individual biscuit. So you can see overall, it's 1.25 kilograms of carbon equivalents per kilogram of cracker that's produced. And then we break that down to try and see where the carbon's coming from across the supply chain. This can be really interesting for customers. So what you can see is that 45% of the carbon emissions associated with this cracker come from the on-farm production stage. That means how your ingredients are made and grown. Then the other thing that we spoke a lot about, because we did touch on earlier that Karen and her team do amazing things at their manufacturing facilities, which is important, but maybe not as important as Karen might have initially thought when it comes to carbon emissions, because you can see the manufacturing part of her total overall emissions is actually only 1.7% of the emissions for that cracker. The other things that are larger, so you can see here transport and storage is sort of 16%. So we might initially try and break down some of that and get better accuracy across those transport routes and understand, okay, is that the right figure or can we improve something there? And then also you might start to think, okay, what could I do better for that on-farm production stage? Because whilst this is already a really good story, I think overarching the reason we're talking about sustainability is because the planet's dying. So it's always like, how can I improve, or what's the right story to take to my suppliers, and what does the next step look like? Then
Lauren, do you want to just go back to that last slide?
Yeah.
This to me is so, as a layperson, from the cheap seats, it's fascinating to actually see it broken down like that into, and the fact that, you would think that the manufacturing process was a huge part of the carbon footprint, and it's not.
The other part, sorry, you go, Karen.
I was going to say, I totally agree, Kim, is because that's exactly where we've concentrated on, is really what we can do and what we can improve and what we think we can improve. But when you look at this, you go, oh, wow, we're looking in the wrong place.
This is this is the beauty of having data, of having rigorous scientific data and methodology behind it. Because if we all think like there's so much goodwill and effort and energy that we want to put towards doing the right thing, but if we're focused in the right area for so long, we're not going to achieve any of the outcomes that we all really want to achieve. And wouldn't it be great at the end of the day, like just say, you've seen this, then you take it away and go, okay, we're going to set a target as Oaklees to reduce our on-farm greenhouse gas emissions by 15% over the next, 12 months, which is a hugely ambitious target. But maybe you can, and then you can come back and go, wow, just by doing that, we've had the opportunity to reduce by 15%. If we got busy in our manufacturing space again and again, we've only got the opportunity to reduce 1.7% of our overall emissions. So the other one that's often really eye-opening is packaging. And so packaging for Oaklees down here is this sort of darker blue bar, and so again that's only between sort of 5 and 10% of the emissions for the product. So again, focusing on what's material, which means the biggest part of your impact, is really important.
And I think it's so interesting as well, because for Karen and her company that is all about using really clean ingredients and as natural and as all of that sort of caper, but fitting those categories, in a way, it comes at a cost, doesn't it? Because you might see another company that's making another cracker, but is using a different base, or it's coming from a different grain or whatever. They might not be hit the same way. What I'm very badly saying is, this is so case by case basis. This is just this is company by company. You can't
It is company by company, Kim, but you would typically see, so I'm going to, dispel some of the myths from the industry, is that for, 90% of food products, most of their emissions will be in the on-farm production stage. What changes can be the transport and the manufacturing. So if it was another cracker company, they would probably, most of their emissions as well would also be at the on-farm production stage, but they might have higher all over emissions because they haven't gone to the depth and understanding of sourcing that Karen and her team does, or they might have a higher packaging footprint or something like that. So those things, pardon me, typically where most of the footprint for products lie is at the on-farm production stage. Sorry about the spoiler.
I would say I think that's a huge, as an SME, that's a huge wake-up call for a lot of SMEs too, Lauren, for that statement. Yeah, because to you, Kim, what you just said is, you think you're playing in the same area, the right area, but oh wow, okay. And then now, as we progress forward, it'll be how do I, SME, instigate change in that space?
Yeah.
Because I've obviously had values and policies that instigate change within my four walls, so to speak, within my footprint, within my actual physical footprint. But beyond that, I've got to start to look.
It's interesting, Karen, and we'll talk about all of this, like what you're going to do with the data or what you want to do with the data next week, because this is a lot to digest. But we are already seeing from major players and not so much SMEs, because you're right, you don't have as much pull, but we are seeing from the major players that they are expecting and communicating down their supply chain to say, we want to see what you're doing to reduce emissions. We want to see you communicating. And it's not about dropping supplies. It's about helping them work towards giving you this sort of information. And also, if you want to meet your suppliers, so your distributors' targets, you're going to have to provide this information as well. So we're all actors in that, up and down our supply chains. And I think you'd be surprised at the opportunity you have to influence. And I think also the data is easier and easier to come by. I think, obviously a plug for us, but we can do it really easily for companies. And I think, if they start looking around, there are other, not as amazing as Calyx, but there are providers who can help them with that information as well. So I think it's no longer an excuse.
No one's as good as Calyx, Lauren. We know that. But I think also what you were just saying about how data is much easier to come by now is such a really important point for people to hear, because I really think that there's that heritage mentality of trying to pull all this information together is really expensive and really time consuming. And I think that we've probably moved a long way along that sort of spectrum to that not being the case.
I think also the sooner this will be something you will have to 100% incorporate into your business. So even starting off like this with one product, and understanding what does that mean what does that mean for us? How am I going to find my product and information data that I need to be able to formulate a footprint? Then where am I going to take that? You will need to go on that journey. You can't bury your head in the sand for too long. So I think as SMEs, let's, chip away at the small bits that we can do. I understand, don't think I'm going to go out and do my whole portfolio. You can if you want, but if it's overwhelming, just start small, understand what it looks like over a 12-month period, and then look at how you scale that, I think. Okay, then we can jump on to, so we spoke a lot about the on-farm greenhouse gas emissions. So we can have a look at how Oaklees compares to the category average for that. And again, so what you can see here, so these are all the emissions from that on-farm production stage, which we said accounted for 45% of Oaklees' overall carbon footprint. But you can see again that you're already, almost less than half that emissions of an average cracker on the market. So you are doing really well. So that's looking at this line here. You could also, in the back here, this sort of, what does that look like? Ayers Rock in the background. Is obviously, that's all of the crackers and crisp breads that we've assessed. You could actually put your portfolio in there, Karen, as well, and you could see, okay, Oaklees, as a product in our portfolio, is it a high performer in terms of environmental footprint? Is it a low performer? How could we bring it up? Those sorts of things to try and understand. And then the next thing we look at is biodiversity, because I think taking it right back to, why we are here, again, our food production is the greatest driver of biodiversity loss. So that's typically through land use change, so clearing land for the production of food, and then the use of pesticides, herbicides, and synthetic fertilizers that also kill, natural plants and animals within the environment. So again, we've mapped that down here against the sales category average, and congratulations, Karen, by what have you got here? 0.96 percentage points. You're better performing than, it should be the other way, actually. I've got an error in there. I need to have a look. But you are better performing than the category average, only by a small amount. But you are. Again, congratulations. I think that's a great outcome.
Thank you. It's looking, I'm liking what I'm seeing at the moment, Lauren. Okay, that's really nice to go, yes. But I could equally be sitting here going, panic, but it's good. It's really great to read it, to look at and compare against category average. That's what I really like.
I think, and when we do a company's whole portfolio, what's really interesting there is then you get a little bit more relativity within the work that you're actually doing to see, okay, this is, where this product performs against my other products. But congratulations. It's not always, stories aren't always like this in terms of, positive outcomes, but you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
The other one that's really important, particularly in Australia, is water use. So we look at how much water is used for the production of 1 kilogram of a product, and that's scaled based on water scarcity. So water scarcity means the amount of water available in the natural environment. So for Australia, typically we have low water scarcity compared to a country like England that has a huge amount of water. So that's relative. And again, you can see that, so for Oaklees crackers, it's 514 metric tons of blue water used per kilogram of cracker, which is less than half the amount typically used in the crackers category. So again, a really great result, and reflects, the fact that, I guess, maybe you're just doing it inadvertently, but we are in a water scarce environment, and you're already building products that resonate with that, which is great.
That's wonderful. That's really good to know.
So I think also, without you knowing or seeing it, the initial, the value proposition for this product is for the future. And, you're already ticking a lot of boxes for the future. So your 3 grandchildren would be very happy to know that on average, this cracker actually has a lower environmental footprint than other crackers they could be purchasing in the market. So, you are doing well.
Thank you. And you know what? That's the story they won't know or won't realise until they're way older, until they are, living and experiencing it themselves, given that they're all under 3 at this very moment in time.
I know, but they'll be able to thank you for it. Yeah. And then the last thing that we've done is, these are all complicated themes to understand as an SME and a business owner. They're also complicated things to understand as a consumer. So how do I communicate? As a business owner, you might think, how can I communicate this to our consumers to give a clear understanding of our sustainability? So what we've done is an eco score for the crackers, which again is a fantastic result. You've got an A-, so congratulations. And so an eco score rolls up all of those metrics that we talked about and a few others. So it takes into consideration the carbon footprint, the water use, pollution, land use change, packaging, and its impact on biodiversity. So this is a really, if you think about on the supermarket shelf, you've got 3 seconds for a consumer to make a decision. And if they're a consumer that cares about sustainability, obviously, glaringly, this product's going to stand out for them, because they can see that, it scores an A. And then you get this detailed fact sheet that a consumer can then have a look at on your website, or you can scan that with a QR code. But underlying all of this is the data you need to then break down what's happening, or to communicate in more detail. So a great way to communicate, but underlying it is, and the most important part is all of the data that sits behind it. So congratulations, Karen. That's a lot to digest, but from that, you're doing really well already.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. I think that it is a lot to digest, but it's really exciting to go, yay, A-. But of course, now the competitiveness that gets you to market says, how do I make it better than A-? Okay, so that's our next journey. But once, obviously, over the next week, I'm going to digest this starter and come back to you with a whole lot of questions, I am sure.
Yeah, awesome. And that is typically, again, like, what we're doing is this, what do we call it? Sustainability 101, or, how we get started. And that is exactly the process. So you've given us the data, we've analyzed your products. We'll share that with you now. Take it away. Not alarm bells, but, light bulb moments, or maybe alarm bells will be going off all over the place. And you just need to distill it. Amazing journey that we've been on a customer with recently that, I want to be I want to have a couple of sustainable products in my range. And then by the time we'd finished working with them, they're like, I want to be the most sustainable brand in Australia, because they could then see, actually, this gives me the understanding and the opportunity to know how I can move different bits of things to achieve that, and then how I can communicate confidently around what I'm doing as well. Because as you said, like, you can see the numbers.
I think go on, Karen.
I was just going to say, I can see how, to your point, Lauren, is how prevalent this is going to become on packaging and in the consumer market, so that they are reading it and expecting it in time. They will expect it. It will become something that is just the norm, like all the other things in packaging that has happened over the time. And I constantly speak about how packaging laws have changed over our journey over 30 years, and claims, etc. like this. This will become very, very prevalent as we move forward for the next 30 years of Kurrajong Kitchen. So it's great.
Yeah.
I think it's really exciting to actually see this from where we started, and then you provided stuff, and now it hasn't been some months and months and taxing and poring over papers, and it's literally been just get started, and then you suddenly see what the potential is. And I think that's great. And I also love that basically the scale that you can, that you're considering that you could use as a label on a package, in terms of, this is how, because it's something that's so difficult for a lot of companies to convey. And there is, just as other, companies you're selling to, or, are going to be expecting this from SMEs and other companies, so too in terms of government bodies and regulatory agencies, in terms of, well, if you're going to say that this product is 100% organic or recyclable, or whatever those claims are, you have to be able to substantiate them. And using something like that scale, and that sort of, you get an A- on this product, or you might even get a B, but it's like with every, consumers then can make an educated choice.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really interesting, Karen's comment about, this will be the future. In Europe, most countries, most supermarkets, all products have eco scores on them. So it's not in 5 or 10 years or 20 years time, like in the European market. It's here now, and consumers expect that, and they want that information. And so yeah, it's interesting. And I think there's a lot of research behind that shows if you can communicate that sustainability to consumers, they do respond positively to having that information.
Well, with that, very quickly, Kim, with that, Lauren, 30 years ago, we bought Lavos to the Australian consumer and innovated that to the market. And maybe this is part of our next innovation journey to educating the market. So here we go. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time. I'll look forward to, Karen, hearing, what comes across your mind and your team over the next sort of 7 days, and then sharing that with the rest of the community.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, you two. This is very exciting. I can't wait. Till next week. Everyone tune in next week.
Bye all.
Bye.